After 5 years of marriage, my wife Diana returned from a 6-month business trip, bringing along her first love, Sam. Diana was already over 3 months pregnant and claimed Sam was going through tough times, asking if he could temporarily stay in our home. When I refused, she accused me of being ungrateful, her tone laced with disdain, as if she'd forgotten that this mansion was mine and her entire family was living off my resources. This time, I resolved to end all financial support. I smiled calmly and called my assistant, instructing her to prepare divorce papers. A woman who'd married into wealth now dared to bring her lover into our home openly. I had eagerly awaited Diana's return from her long business trip. Early that morning, I'd carefully arranged the little souvenirs I'd collected for her over the past 6 months and asked Mrs. Wilson, our housekeeper, to prepare a table filled with her favorite dishes. Just then, the front door opened and Diana walked in, her arm wrapped around her ex-boyfriend. I froze in shock as Sam approached, wearing a sly smile. Liam, long time no see, my gaze shifted to Diana's visibly pregnant belly, and anger flared within me. Noticing my reaction, Sam quickly moved closer, holding my wrist with a smirk. Liam, please don't be angry. This is all my fault. Blame me if you must, but don't hurt Diana. Sam's words struck me like lightning. I hadn't even spoken, yet he'd already confessed everything. Diana watched my reaction intently, ready to protect Sam at any moment. I clenched my fists and glared at her. Aren't you going to explain? I demanded. She sighed, and with a gentle smile, turned to Sam. Let's find you a room first, I'll handle this. Her soft tone stunned me. In 5 years of marriage, she'd never spoken to me with such kindness. Under my disbelieving gaze, she supported Sam as they went upstairs. Moments later, the driver entered with 3 large suitcases. Sam had moved half his belongings here. Though Sam looked even healthier than I did, Diana treated him as if he were fragile. I sank onto the sofa, waiting for Diana to settle Sam in and come back to explain. Listening to their laughter upstairs, I was about to confront them when the doorbell rang. Diana's parents entered, faces grim, and immediately hurried upstairs, barely noticing me. I followed, overhearing Diana pulling her parents aside, speaking earnestly. I didn't want to hide this from you, but the pregnancy is fragile, and I was worried something could go wrong. Please understand, Sam and I love each other. And the baby I'm carrying is your grandchild. Please don't blame him. In that moment, I recalled our marriage. Anytime I'd had disagreements with her mother, Diana would insist I be more patient, reminding me of her mother's age. She had never stood up for me. Today, as I watched her shield Sam at every turn, I realized how deeply I'd been deceived. Sam chimed in, taking Diana's mother's hand, saying, I didn't mean to ruin Diana's marriage. We genuinely love each other. I hope you can understand. Uncle and Aunt Diana's mother's frown began to soften, and she glanced at me, hesitant. For 5 years, I provided her family with monthly allowances. It was clear that Sam's financial status didn't compare to mine. My heart sank. Not only had Diana failed to inform me of her situation as my wife, but she'd humiliated me publicly. Did she truly believe I lacked self-respect? Seeing the room's silence, Diana's eyes reddened, and she began to sob. The child is innocent. No matter what, I will give birth to him. Blame me if you must, but please don't harm my child. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she looked pitiful to anyone watching. Sam gently wiped her tears, his expression pained, adding, Mom, please answer her. You know pregnant women need emotional stability. Since our wedding, Diana's parents had pressured us for a child, and for 5 years, we tried. I knew her parents had made harsh remarks about me behind my back regarding the family line. Breaking the silence, Diana's father finally spoke. After all, Diana is carrying our foster family's heir. We all need to keep our tempers in check for the next few months, as he finished. All eyes turned to me, their expressions united as though I were the intruder here. I couldn't suppress a cold laugh. Does anyone care about my opinion? Sensing my displeasure, Sam stepped in front of Diana, his eyes blazing as he confronted me. Liam, are you deaf? We've told you everything directly. What else do you want to know? I couldn't help but give a cold laugh. My wife had been away on a business trip for 6 months and came back with this shocking revelation for me. Not only did she fail to give me any direct explanation, but she also dared to use this demanding tone with me. Seeing that I remained silent, Diana began crying again, clutching Sam's wrist while sobbing, If Liam is truly angry, maybe I should just leave. Diana's mother, clearly unhappy with this, quickly replied, "You're carrying our family's grandchild. How could we let you leave?" After saying this, Sam looked at me with a glare saying, "Say something. Look how terrified Diana is. She's carrying my child after all. If you have any objections, take them up with me privately. I won't let you harm her." Sam then grabbed Diana's wrist urgently, saying, "Diana, this might be too much. Maybe I should leave. I don't want to create tension between you and Sam." He looked at me as if he were about to break down, his eyes filled with tears like a soap opera actor at his peak moment of sorrow. All I felt was disgust mixed with anger. Diana immediately comforted him, wrapping him in a protective embrace and whispering words I couldn't make out, but that visibly reassured him. For a moment, I stood still, watching this pathetic display play out in my own home, where they dared to humiliate and confront me so openly. But a cold, calculating feeling settled in me. I had no more words to say, yet a clear decision was forming inside. This would be the last day that Diana and her beloved Sam would ever step foot in my home without my permission. I had put up with too much, and seeing her protect him, treating me as an obstacle and a stranger, was the final blow. I turned on my heel, determined, and walked to my office. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer, needing to act swiftly before the charade of Sam and Diana grew even more unbearable. I quickly explained the humiliations I had endured, and he reassured me immediately everything was in my name: the house, the accounts, the assets. I already knew that, but hearing it from a trustworthy person renewed my confidence. As I was talking, I heard footsteps behind me. Diana had come downstairs, likely puzzled by my abrupt exit. Without hiding the disdain in her voice, she asked, "What are you doing, Sam? Are you going to run away from the conversation again?" I met her gaze with a calmness that I think surprised her. Ending the call, I slipped the phone into my pocket and stood up slowly, taking a deep breath as she continued to look at me with that air of superiority, as if she had won some sort of battle. "Diana," I began, my voice firm, "you accuse me of running, but the only one running here is you. You ran from our marriage, from the respect we once had for each other, and now you have the audacity to be pregnant and bring another man into my house as though I'm just an observer in your life." She laughed with disdain, saying, "Liam, do you really think you can scare me with those words? What do we have besides history? Money? Security? Do you think that just because you've paid the bills all these years, you can control me?" She appeared confident, as though her stance put her in control, but I knew it was all just a front. Diana continued talking, but I stopped listening. I walked to the door and opened it decisively, gesturing for her to leave. "This isn't a request, Diana, it's a warning. Take Liam, grab your bags, and leave now. I'll send you the divorce papers soon, and I'll let your family know they won't see another cent from me." Her expression changed from superiority to shock and finally to panic. She hesitated, trying to regain control, saying, "Liam, you're overreacting. You wouldn't actually do this. You wouldn't sink that low." I gave her a smile she had never seen before. "Oh, Diana, you have no idea what I'm capable of. All these years I stood by your side, endured every comment from your mother, every thinly veiled humiliation, hoping one day you'd see the value in what we had built together. Now I see you never respected me." She tried to argue but was interrupted when Sam came down the stairs, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. He seemed to realize that I was no longer the submissive husband willing to forgive everything. He placed a protective hand on her belly, as though I were a threat to the baby, and said gently, "Diana, I think it's best if we leave." "Yes, I think that's best," I replied, meeting his gaze directly, making it clear I was no longer deceived by his act. "You have until the end of the day to leave. Consider this my last act of kindness." Sam looked at me with resentment, but I stood firm. They left the room, and I remained where I was, watching as she gathered their bags and helped Sam, his pride wounded, without a single word directed at me. The house, which had been filled with memories, both good and bad, was finally free of their burden and pretense. As the door closed, a wave of relief washed over me, mixed with sadness, but it wasn't for Diana, it was for the time and energy I had devoted to someone who never truly saw me. I called my lawyer again, informing him of Diana's departure and to proceed with the divorce. That night, I sat alone at the dining table, yet in peace. As I ate, I thought about the future and everything I still needed to rebuild for myself. I decided, at that moment, never again to allow anyone to treat me as Diana had, and to always stand firm, no matter the relationship. After that night, once Diana and Sam had finally left my home, a surprising calm settled over me. For the first time in years, I felt fully in control of my life, my decisions, and above all, how I would respond to everything they had put me through. But that feeling alone wasn't enough. I knew they had walked away too easily, without feeling the true weight of their choices. It was an open wound, and I couldn't just let it go unanswered. In the days that followed, I stayed in constant communication with my lawyer to expedite the divorce process. The house, the bank accounts, and even Diana's assets were intertwined with mine in such a way that, with a single signature, she would lose almost everything. For years, she had become accustomed to the luxury, the trips, the meals prepared by renowned chefs, a lifestyle she enjoyed solely because she was with me. With that privilege about to vanish, I intended to ensure she felt its loss profoundly. The first piece of news was that Diana and Sam were frantically searching for a place to live and had settled into a small apartment in a suburban neighborhood, an area quite unlike the one Diana was used to. Sam, naturally, was displeased with their new situation. He'd come into my life to ruin my marriage, expecting to replace me, but all he accomplished was splitting rent in a modest apartment with a woman whose life was in shambles. Diana's career was also suffering. As soon as the divorce started, I severed all ties and contacts she'd gained through me. I informed everyone in our business network about the separation, making it clear she no longer represented my company in any capacity. The effects were immediate. Diana lost access to the connections, clients, and influence I had built with great effort. Now, she was just another face among the masses. But for me, those actions weren't enough. I wanted Diana and Sam to truly experience the weight of their choices, so I decided to take more direct steps. I hired a private investigator to monitor their life in that apartment. It didn't take long before I received a full report. Sam and Diana were constantly arguing. He was dissatisfied with their new lifestyle, frequently complaining about their limited finances, the poor conditions of their apartment, and most of all, her inability to provide him with the lifestyle he believed he deserved. The photos from the investigator revealed that their dream was falling apart, but the final touch to my revenge was still to come. Through some remaining industry contacts, I arranged for a job offer to reach Sam an assistant role in a small company. For someone like him, it was a position that bordered on humiliating, which was precisely my intent. Sam, in his desperation, accepted the job, likely hoping he could rise through the ranks and restore his previous lifestyle. Diana, with no better options, also took a position far below what she was accustomed to. She found work at a mid-sized firm, but her reputation was already damaged. People saw her as someone who'd married for money and was now struggling to maintain appearances. One day, I decided to confront them in person, albeit indirectly. I knew their usual lunch spot, a modest restaurant close to Sam's office. I walked in unexpectedly, aware that they would be there. The stares I received were unavoidable. Approaching their table with a smile, I noticed their discomfort. Diana, Sam, I greeted them as though we were long-lost friends with no history between us. They sat in silence, visibly uneasy. "Liam, we don't need to do this here," Diana mumbled, clearly embarrassed. Ignoring her, I continued, "I just wanted to see how you're doing. I've heard life has changed a lot in recent months." I looked them over, noting their simple attire and worn-out expressions. Sam tried to appear composed, though it was evident my presence bothered him deeply. He responded, struggling to maintain dignity, "We're fine, Liam. I guess, in the end, everyone got what they wanted." I chuckled softly. "Oh, of course. At least I'm living in peace. I just wanted to wish you both happiness. Enjoy every moment of this new life you've built together." With a smirk full of irony, I turned and left them with their plates and their mediocre lives. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of freedom. They were trapped in a reality they had shaped themselves, and I no longer needed to do anything further to worsen their situation. Diana had traded the security and comfort she once had with me for a mere illusion, while Sam, who thought he'd replace me, now found himself in a world lacking luxury, stability, and the respect he thought he deserved. Returning home, I felt a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in a long time. Each part of this revenge was crafted to make sure they faced the consequences of their actions independently. I didn't need to act directly against them. Life simply ran its course, allowing me to rebuild my peace and freedom. In the following months, I invested time in myself. I picked up old hobbies, traveled to places I had always dreamed of visiting, and started pursuing new business opportunities. The life I was building was finally free of any remnants of the past. As for Diana and Sam, I later heard that their relationship didn't last. Sam, feeling unsatisfied and frustrated, eventually left Diana, leaving her just as she had begun with nothing and no one. When I heard of their end, I simply smiled to myself. They had sown the seeds of their own fate and were now reaping the results of their choices. Meanwhile, I finally felt as though I had closed that chapter of my life.